So my name is Silvia, and I'm a PDH student of Faculty of Education, and my PDH is about sustainability and sport. So that's all, more or less.
And you are living here?
Yeah, in Zaragoza.
Hi, I'm Lucia. I also live here in Zaragoza, and I'm a research master's student in the Faculty of Education, and I'm also collaborating in the department with Silvia and Berta.
Hi, my name is Berta. I am a teacher in physical education in Faculty of Education and University of Zaragoza.
Hi, I'm Nausicaa. I'm Italian, but I'm living here in Zaragoza. I'm a student of Antonio Valero in the master degree of renewable energy. And now I'm working in renewable energy also.
Hi, my name is Lucia. I live here in Zaragoza and I work in the Oficina Verde Green Office at the university.
Hello, my name is Luis. I probably are the oldest student who are here. I've been working for many years, but after the change, now I've got time, and I've been studying with Antonio. I'm in a new life.
Hi, I'm also a student of Antonio Valero and Alicia, and I'm doing the renewable energy master, and now I'm working my final work, the master thesis, about the efficiency of electric motors, and I'm interested in all the things we are going to talk here.
Hi, my name is Yerthol. I live here in Zaragoza, and I am studying geographic and planning territory. And I'm here because one of my teachers from economic geography told us this Friday was this Club de Roma something, and I was pretty interested coming here.
Hi, I am Alejandro. I am also a student from Antonio and Alicia, since I have studied the Master of Renewable Energy. I am currently doing my final master thesis about CO2 capture, since I find it really important, a way to decarbonize some hard-to-abate sectors, such as cement industry or steel, or, for example, waste-to-energy plants. And well, this is what I am currently doing.
Good afternoon. I'm Ignacio Calvo. I also studied the master with Antonio and Alicia. I'm currently a student, and at the same time, I work in a company that designs and manufactures heat recuperators for big furnaces. Yeah, I think that efficiency in industry is a very important point to improve, and that's me.
Okay, my name is Miguel Ángel. I am technical advisor of the major of the municipality of Zaragoza, and I am also pupil of Antonio. That is some years ago, a lot of years ago. And well, I am responsible for the strategic and everything related in technology of the municipality of Zaragoza.
I am Antonio. I am a student.
Well said, Antonio. So I'm Carlos. I'm not a student of Antonio, but a very good friend. So we met years ago. I'm based in Madrid, and I'm a member of the executive committee of the Club of Rome, and I work very closely with with Mamphela and the other co-president, Sandrine Dixon-de Clève, on, well, what we will talk about.
Hello, I am Alicia. I am student, daughter, and colleague of Antonio, proudly. And yes, and lately I am very much involved in dissemination, also teaching, etc.
Hello, I'm Javier. I am also a student from Antonio Valero and colleague from most of the people here. I'm doing my master thesis with Antonio about the resources that the bioregion will need in order to decarbonize the economy in terms of energy. And I am the last one.
Well, good afternoon and thank you. It's evening already. Thank you for coming to meet with us today. We at the Club of Rome, I'm Mamphela Ramphele. I am the co-president of the Club of Rome. I'm a South African, and I'm almost 3 times older than many of you around here. But I love being my age because I have traveled a journey which I'm very proud of. Lots of mistakes, lots of lessons, and lots of joy. So, as the Club of Rome, we know from talking to people, but also from our own experiences, that the planetary emergencies that are upon us are causing a lot of anxiety, a lot of worry. But we believe that every emergency or every crisis is also a moment of opportunity. But it goes even further, that sometimes you don't want to listen, you don't want to explore alternatives until you are really in a crisis. And then that crisis becomes an epiphany moment. And I think COVID in particular, because it was so close to the bone for us. Lots of people lost their friends, including me, their relatives, including me. So we can't pretend that this planetary emergency is not here. You can't deny it anymore. But as the Club of Rome, we want to go beyond focusing on the emergency to ask the question, how can we be a catalyst of emergence from these emergencies? And this question we asked at the beginning of when the climate crisis became very obvious about 3 years ago. But as I said, that question is more urgent now. But we also believe that to get to grips with something as big as a journey of emergence from emergency, you've got to kind of see what are the entry points, what are the hooks. And so we've got 5 thematic areas at the Club of Rome. The first being, yes, there is a planetary emergency, but what can we do now to stop the pain, the bleeding, and the accident that's happened? So we have been advocating for and working in partnership with 200 institutions, civil society organizations, and so on, to look at appropriate planetary emergency plans that obviously when COVID came, every country had a plan. The second theme is about, we are in this emergency because our economic model is past sell-by date. It's not an appropriate economic model for the 21st century. It's very much an industrial product, and yet the world has changed, but the economic system hasn't changed. The teaching of Economics 101 is a disgrace and should not be there. So we are looking at reframing economics. as the second theme. The third theme is we know that our economic system has been financialized. So the financial system is the tail that's wagging the dog. And so how do we rethink finance? Both in terms of what we finance, but also in terms of transforming the finance system. You are, even though you are young, but you know enough about the financial crisis that we have had before, which are engineered by this kind of fancy games that are played by Wall Street and other stock markets. The fourth theme is what we refer to as Emerging New Civilizations Initiative. How do we explore what new civilizations could look like instead of the current one, which is consumption focused, which is very divisive, which is very conflict ridden and unsustainable, obviously. And the final theme, and the most important theme for today, is global youth engagement. Because at the end of the day, I'll be 74 in December. My life is behind me. Your life is here and in front of you. If we really are serious about emergence from emergency, we are not the ones who should be conducting that conversation. You should. And not just conducting the conversations, but leading the changes that are needed in all of those other thematic areas that I was talking about. And so we, as Carlos explained to some of you, 2 years ago, we started with having a youth summit alongside the annual meetings of the Club of Roma. And out of the first experience in 2019, we then developed this engagement platform. And now we have a really dynamic young woman who's leading this, together with 10 other members of the coordinating committee. And they're doing some exciting things of wherever you are, whether it's in a campus or in a village or in a corporate or wherever, having listening sessions with the people who are in your network, because that will help you anchor your own thoughts, concerns, and so on within the real ecosystem. And together in that ecosystem, you can start figuring out, like Antonio and co are doing in this bio region, you do it now at whatever little locale you are in, because what is clear is that this emergence from emergency is going to be the result of being locally attuned and globally aligned. And we need to understand the fine, the granular part of where we are and where we can, in fact, individually influence things, starting with ourselves. Because at the end of the day, the explorations of emerging from emergencies and this emerging new civilization is going to come out of each one of us, traveling inside ourselves and asking the question, who am I and how do I understand what it is to be human? And how is my behavior contributing to the emergent civilization I would like to see? And then how do I influence the emergence of this? So you connect the personal, professional, and the political in the sense of as a human being, you're a civic being, and civic politics is about how you influence the relationships, not just with others, but also with decision-making where you are. We are here today because we want to hear you about how do you see what's happening and what are you doing which you believe by working together as young people, but also working together in this intergenerational conversational mode, we can create the transformational momentum that we would like to see. So I think I'm going to leave it there, but pass it on to Carlos to perhaps give you a little bit of in-depth about how this works in the Club de Roma, but the most important thing is we want to hear from you.
Well, I just want to add a couple of ideas. One is that the Club of Rome is known as a think tank. Sometimes we describe ourselves as a think tank, but as an organization which most people associate, if they know anything about the Club of Rome, they associate us with the role of talking to governments or to multilateral institutions, bringing, you know, the best evidence to them about the issues of humanity. And that's what we did in the very early times of the Club of Rome, and we published, so people who know about the Club of Rome, who know something about it, generally know about the Limits to Growth report that we published. It will be 50 years ago next year. And because it sold 30 million copies, and it had a strong message of exploring different scenarios for the future of the world, and finding in a rigorous way, as much rigorous as you could imagine, even knowing that all models are wrong, but some are useful, and with the means of the time, limited means of the time, exploring a number of scenarios, and finding out that in most of the scenarios would go into collapse by the mid-century, to collapse due to the combination of pollution and exhaustion of resources. That success of that report was sort of a blessing, but also a curse, because it overshadowed another dimension of the Club of Rome, which is the dimension of thinking about humanity, not about modeling and defining issues as technical problems of resources and materials and whatever, but about the deep sense of humanity. And actually the founder of the Club of Rome, who was at the same time a very successful businessman in Italy, but also something really brave, because he got involved in the resistance against fascism and against the Nazis, and he was put in jail and tortured. So not the typical businessman you could think of nowadays, you know. And he was also a humanist and a visionary. And he understood that it's fine to go to governments to give them the evidence and try to change the policies, but it's not enough. Because if you don't work for cultural change, for deep cultural change, no policy, whatever brilliant it is, will do the job. That's the matter of another report that almost nobody knows, unfortunately, and we have to make it more well-known, titled No Limits to Learning, published in 1979, and which is freely accessible on the internet. And of the last book that Aurelio Peccei, the founder of the Club of Rome, co-authored, is titled Before It Is Too Late, and in that book, he, together with a Buddhist philosopher, they proposed the human revolution. So now, many years later, we realize, oh my God, the human revolution is still pending, right? We have still not freed ourselves from the mental jails that we have created about our own capacities to address the challenges of humanity, but especially about the fact that well-being, human well-being, comes with relationships. It doesn't come from material consumption. I mean, we need, of course, we have fundamental needs, yes, to survive, but material consumption does not bring the well-being. What brings the well-being is the quality of our relationships with other humans, with living beings, with nature, and our perspective of time. So big part of what we are doing now is to try to find out the people that are doing this human revolution every day in their own environments and in a silent way. And normally you don't see them unless you put the right lenses and you look for them. And then if you put the right lenses, you find them everywhere. So it's funny because that human revolution is everywhere except in the most public places. It's not typically not in the media, not even in the social media, definitely not in the multilateral institutions, in all those spheres where there is so much blah blah about our challenges and the solutions. But, you know, people on the ground are doing that, are really addressing the challenges, and especially in the commonality between them is that they are doing, if we look at some cases, we know they have a commonality. What they do, what certain people are able to do, is to create the conditions for people, as people, to liberate themselves from their sense of helplessness, of, oh, we cannot do anything, we have not the resources, we have not the capacity, we have not the ability, we are not capable. We have to expect solutions from somewhere else. Somebody will bring the solutions for us, etc. So the commonality between the cases, these seeds of the new civilizations, these seeds where the human revolution is happening, is literally human, free humans from being split into pieces. One side, one piece is the professional, one piece is the personal, one piece is the political, and you have different values for, no. We are wholes as humans, and we are all capable of learning our ways to well-being within the biosphere, which is based on the idea that, you know, for well-being in the biosphere, you don't have to take on one side well-being as a topic of material consumption, and on the other side taking care of the biosphere, because you are ruining the biosphere by this overconsumption. No, it's, you have to reconnect both things. And the good news is that most of those people, not all, I mean, very interesting cases, but there are many, many of these people who are doing the human revolution who are, and it's not a coincidence, from the younger generations, because you might be freer from established frameworks, and if I may, most of them are women. And we are seeing that all over the world. You know, and this is not a declaration of political correctness. Don't get me wrong. This is not about that. This is an observation, a scientific observation, you know. So now we are in a way redefining our mission in the sense of, okay, the human revolution is already happening. It's happening everywhere. Maybe we shouldn't say this too loud, you know, because maybe being not completely visible is part of the secret for the human revolution to happen. And our mission is to help the people who are doing it. So this is why we're here.
Good. Now we are here with 2 ears and 1 mouth. And so I'm going to pass the mic to anybody who wants to comment or ask a question or whatever.
I will break the ice. Well, I totally agree with what you have said. And I would like to say that, in my opinion, as I said before, we need to create a global conscience that our future is there and we need to do something. Because at the moment, I don't know what you think about this, but sometimes we are like waiting for a solution and we are not making that solution. So I think that it's important to create a network of people who are all concerned about sustainability in order to know each other and to start an action. And as well to create a global conscience among other people who don't know the numbers. But because other problem that is existing here in Europe is that we live too well. There are some problems with the atmosphere, like floods and things like that, but we are living too well, and we are not aware of the problems that all the world, all the population are suffering. So I think it's important to divulgate the information and to create that network in order to start that action. I don't know how is the situation in South Africa, if the young people are starting to create that conscience or not, but I think this is my opinion. I don't know, what do you think the rest about Spain, if you want to say something?
I just want to ask something, taking advantage that you are here. You have said, well, all of us, I think that we agree that we are in an emergency, so actions must be taken faster than that are being taken. So we as young people, which steps we must take in order to reach that change in our minds and make aware the rest of people that the emergency is happening now and the actions must be taken. So which advice could you give us, or which steps are the most important to achieve that goal?
If it's related to this? Yeah. Let's hear that first. Because I just, I don't have enough bandwidth, so I'm asking too many questions.
Yeah, it's just a short appointment related to what Alejandro said. Adding how to, which is the advice you can give us. Also, how we can combine people that is not aware of this situation. Because I think all of us here, we are combined and we want to fight for the same goal or same path to solve this situation. But when we discuss with a person that is not interested in this, maybe interested in living well, and he or she doesn't mind about anything, how we can change his mind and how to make some changes in their mind, because there are a lot of people in that side that it's very difficult or quite difficult to interact to it with them. Yeah, to convince them.
I'm going to respond to your questions with a little bit of a look into my own history. In 1968, when the Club of Roma was founded, it so happens that I was a young medical student in South Africa. And at that time, we were at a university which was segregated. We were in a section of the university which was called the non-European section of the University of Natal. And of course, we used to call ourselves non-Europeans too. And we were called, there were rules about, this is reserved for white people, non-whites are not allowed. And we got conditioned to this idea of being referred to as non-Europeans until one day, as we were chatting as students about all these problems, it just it was an epiphany. hey, how do you free yourself to be a full citizen of a country where you allow the person who's oppressing you to determine that they are the standard against which you are measured, okay? There's no way you're going to ever not be a non-European if you accept that. Or, given my skin color, there's no way I can not be a non-white. So, we had, that's why I talk about traveling inside. We had to ask ourselves, what is it about? Now, remember at that time, the so-called white people or European, people of European extraction were less than 10% of the population. 90% of people being accepting this, right? So, a circle of us, no more than 15, started having these conversations, particularly over weekends, overnight, and so on. And we finally realized that actually, oppression, whether it's gender, whether it's race, whether it's economic opportunity, happen because the oppressor manages to imprison the oppressed into thinking there's no alternative. And that comes from undermining the dignity of this person. Because if someone were to call me a non-man, that person is undermining my dignity as a woman, okay? And to the extent that I actually call myself a non-man, I'm undermining myself. So it boils down to one thing, which is what Carlos talks about as the human revolution is actually consciousness. When you become conscious that you are fully human, fully whom you were created to become, and you have the rights to name yourself. It even went to the extent that we had to have European names because Europeans couldn't pronounce our names with clicks. Can you believe the extent of psychological imprisonment? So when we got to that realization, we just decided to say to ourselves in the first place, I'm black and I'm proud and I'm beautiful and this is it. I'm free because I've broken the chains, okay? First of all, we went to the principal's office. We didn't get through Senate, no, straight to the open. No more non-European section. This is the black section. And you are going to change all the stationery. And they did. 15 students, right? Now what am I saying? I'm saying to you, you got more power than you think you have. But that power gets released when you come to consciousness of just how special you are, because every human being is special. Even if you are twins, identical twins, you're bringing something special. And you assert yourself. And of course, it doesn't mean that apartheid or colonial oppression ended that day, but it meant that from that day onwards, we were able to change everything wherever we were. We wouldn't tolerate the professor who humiliates you. The whole class will turn around and say, excuse me, we thought we were dealing here with human beings, what's happening? And it's amazing how it works. And now, in your case, the easiest space to start is in your personal life, of course. You can't say you are worried about the planetary emergency and you buy, the first thing when you graduate, you buy yourself a Mercedes-Benz that guzzles petrol. I mean, there's no. So there has to be harmony between your personal values, the professional values, and the values of your civic life, okay? And this happened to me, this is now 53 years ago. And I don't have to remember, it's just there now. It's like, it's part of who I am. And this is what Carlos meant by the human being students are at their best when they are in healthy relationships. And you are at your best when you are in a healthy relationship with yourself, with your family, your friends, and the people you work with. Now, as students, you are graduate students. Obviously, you're already looking at careers. We were in Paris on Sunday, we met young people who are quitting corporate jobs because there's no way you can live corporate values if you have values that are about ecosystem sustainability and human solidarity and well-being for all. They're quitting because they're saying they're tired of waking up in the morning and packing their values here and then going to work and using corporate values. So you become schizophrenic, okay? And a lot of young people, actually, not so young people, because yesterday we met somebody who actually ended up in a deep depression because of this kind of thing. So you have decisions to make about your careers that should be in harmony with your personal values and in harmony with what you would like to see as this emerging new civilization. How do you organize? Now, I don't think you should imagine, starting something really fancy, very simple stuff that you start with. Learning, the way we learn, that's why we are sitting like this. This is an African technology of conversations, because when you are in a circle, I can see your eyes, and when I say something that hurts you, I can read it quickly. And so I say, sorry, did I say something that... So you've got actually feedback loops that begin to develop, and you become sensitized to how you relate to other people and how they experience you. And so I think you have an attitude which we didn't have then. From that 15 that I was talking about 53 years ago, we were able to change the whole mindset of the whole country. How did we do it? Starting with the University of Natal, then moving to other university campuses where there were students like us. And before we knew it, many of the people, when you are doing teaching, or education, when they qualified as teachers, they became agents of changing those young people. Now, some of you may know about the Soweto 1976 uprising in South Africa. How did it happen? This way. Because the high school students got the message, and they stood up and said, excuse me, we're not going to be fed this third-class education. We don't want trouble, but we just want to let you know. Now here we are today. I mean, Antonio in his presentation about the regional issue, and we also as the Club of Rome are back to the learning, back to the quality of education. The education systems of the world are 17th, 18th century systems. We need education systems of today. So you have a wonderful opportunity right there and there to first in your current studies, but also as professionals who are going to be out there. Now you have a tool which we didn't have, internet, what do we call it, ICT technology. You can organize in a matter of days hundreds of thousands of people. Instead of sitting there and tweeting about nothing or Facebooking about nothing, why don't you create platforms of organizing for the emerging new civilization and changing in the learning process so that learning becomes a process of helping you to grow in your consciousness of the power you have. And that's why we have created this global youth engagement platform. And so we believe that getting yourself to become part of that network, we will have layers of young people who are professionals, who are entrepreneurs, all working together, not in silos, but also younger people in high school We have a young woman in high school in South Africa. People talk about Greta. Yeah. There are thousands of young people who are not spoken about. In fact, this young woman, when she went to the World Economic Forum, she was on the same platform with Greta. Someone actually, what do they call it when they remove you with from a picture? What do you call it?
Oh, they deleted her.
Yeah, there's a term for it. Yeah, they photoshopped her out of the picture because they wanted Greta to be the voice, right? Now, there it is, something good is already being soiled by racism and this kind of chauvinism. But this young woman in South Africa, she's in high school. She's written the first climate emergency plan for South Africa, and she took it to the president and said, here, you're going to COP, and you're going to have to represent me and my generation and the future of our children. This is the message you have to take.
I may bring something to your question, or the two questions, because this is, I think, very important. The realization that we never teach anybody anything to anybody. The concept of teaching is largely misled. People learn by themselves. We learn by ourselves, and we are fantastic, incredible, we have incredible capacities to learn. Learning in the deep sense of the term, which is you haven't learned until you change. So learning is not the conscious understanding of something. It comes when you really embody that new idea so much that you have changed, you know. And this means that you were asking, how do we convince others who don't care, you know? Not in direct ways. If I tell you, trust me, you know, with a tone like that, the normal reaction is that you will not. Most important things in life, you don't get them there in a linear way, you know, by following, you see them. Yes, we get many things by doing, I want to do this, and I do it. Yes, there's a lot we do that way, but not the most important things in life. You don't get them that way. You don't get love or friendship or trust that way. So the point is, if we want to convince somebody of something, first there is a question about, are we legitimate to tell others, no, to teach others what they have to, or shouldn't we create the contexts or the conditions for those people to experience by themselves, to learn by themselves whatever we think we have already learned. And this is very much a commonality. I said the commonality between the many cases we see of the human revolution happening is the capacity to bring to people, you know, to get people free from helplessness, and for that they learn that they are capable. And it doesn't happen because somebody with authority tell to people, you are capable. No, it doesn't work that way. And our colleague, John Gilmore, created 15 years ago schools in South Africa from the idea, the crazy idea at the time that the kids in the poorest places, poorest townships of South Africa can go to university. He was convinced of that, and with some other crazy persons, against all evidence, you know, against everything which was saying to these kids, you are not capable, they were convinced they were. But they didn't go to the township saying to kids, you are capable. They created a context a very different context from the usual school, of course, based on things which already exist. And this is terrible because the pedagogies of all these exist since, some of them since 1 century. But for instance, what John Gilmore used is based on the ideas of Paulo Freire. It's 70 years old, the concept, the idea, and the practices. And this is all about create the conditions, just create the space, the safe space for people to flourish by themselves. So if you want to convince others, maybe you have to think it in a circular way. What kind of experience could we propose that those people will learn by themselves? Oh, what we're talking about is serious, you know?
Yes, I totally agree. But I would also add, I think it is important to inspire the people, and inspire in a modest way, let's say. So with your work, with your knowledge, not telling them that you should do this or that, but showing them that through your actions or through your knowledge, etc., that anyone can do it. And I think we are now in a time which, after COVID or in COVID times, we have learned that we are vulnerable, and that if we are against nature, nature will be against us. And I think that, according to my experience, that people are getting aware that something needs to be done. And I think they need this spark, this inspiration to start reacting and saying, that's it. Because I think COVID has taught us many things. One thing is we are vulnerable, and we cannot work against nature because, yeah, we have seen this, COVID, but we are seeing many other reactions from nature. The other thing is that we have finally understood what means exponential growth, because if we hadn't stayed at home, we would have been all of us sick in a couple of days. So exponential growth is so dangerous, and we are extracting all the natural resources out of nature in an exponential way. So we need to tell them, okay, you now know exponential growth through COVID. Now you can extrapolate it to all the resources. And that means that in a couple of, maybe not days, but in a couple of years, this is it. So I think this is a good lesson. And the other lesson from COVID is that materials, as you said before, is not the most important in our lives. The most important is your family, your relationships, going to the mountains and do excursions and be with your fellows, etc. So I think it is a good opportunity for us to spark the transition, and this needs to be done as soon as possible, because unfortunately people forget too quick. Yeah.
Do you think that the right to live in a natural environment and sustainable environment could be the new goal for humanity? And how do you feel about the no action of governments? of governments in the climate emergency.
Just to follow up on the issue of how do you inspire people to do things. I mean, I talked about our small group of 15. By staying together as people who are like-minded, we're able to support one another on this journey, because we were on a journey no one had ever walked the journey we walked. No adult, no other young group of young people. But by staying together, we were able to find our way, okay? But there is another thing which we did, which I think it speaks to your inspiration story. We really have to bring the power of the arts, the visual, the music, dance, etc. If we don't dance with systems, and if we don't allow our minds to imagine a different reality, we always will stay with the emergency and the vulnerability, which is important to do, to take it in, but we then have to imagine an alternative. And so consciousness raising has to also be fun. So it's not about a gloomy kind of church-like setup. It is actually going out to explore nature. We talk about nature. We are nature. I mean, what we are doing by going on an excursion is to reconnect, right? I mean, think about bees, how they are forever busy, and they don't go to the same flowers all the time. They're the pollinators. And so one of the metaphors you might have about how you help other people to feel or to explore this shift is by making it attractive, by making it fun, and you become the pollinators. And people say, wow. I mean, like, I was a young, very ignorant doctor when I went to live in and work with very poor people. And there was no model I had to follow in terms of how do you become a community doctor to a village of extraordinarily poor people. It's amazing. You find the way by doing. And in your case, you also have the advantage of being able to virtually connect with other people who are doing or searching for this, in the same way. So I think that's that aspect. Your question is particularly about? The right to live in yes, right. Now, that right, I think there was a time when people were drawn to the city lights, and now they realize that that's emptiness. It's that issue of the material versus the holistic well-being and relational richness of healthy relationships. I think in this afternoon we're talking about this, thinking about the emptying of rural areas into cities. Now I'm seeing in South Africa, and I'm sure we'll see it everywhere else. We met a young woman yesterday who was talking about refilling the emptying rural areas. Now you don't fill them by saying to people, like they did during the apartheid era, that you have to have a permit to move into the city. You make it attractive. And we talk about the need to transform education. Imagine if you were decide to go into teaching, and you have a group of youth who want to do that, and they're communities, healthy communities, and I will let Carlos talk to the community that he dealt with in Morocco, where people who live in those rural areas, if they don't have the inspirational impetus around, they can really get into this helplessness. And how we transform the rural natural spaces into attractive spaces. It's really important, but it's got to be done in a way that is sustainable. You know, we mustn't do what the hippies used to do at the same time in the 60s, who decided to have communes and crazy life. No, you've got to do things that are sustainable, that are governed by the values that you like to see in this new civilization that we are all aspiring to. But I believe that unemployment, crowded urban spaces are actually telling us that it's time to go back home. And back home is where we really smell and touch and feel nature. But importantly, when it comes to schools, this LEAP school model that Carlos was referring to, they don't have laboratories in the sense of a place you go into the school. The schools are completely different. They're just very simple buildings, and they sit like this, and the students then have little round tables where they break up into small discussion groups and peer-to-peer learning groups. But when it comes to laboratories, they go into the garden. Every one of the schools has got a school garden, which also produces food, because most of the people are poor, and they get their breakfast, lunch, and supper at the school. But they actually learn biology, botany, and even chemistry from nature. Now, if you are in a concrete jungle, you can't do that. So I think there is a lot to be said for what you are talking about, but it's got to be thought through in the context, for example, of this bioregional development. What is the place that, or what are the places that can be created in there where you can have healthy model communities? Somebody else?
So, as we said before, we come from the Faculty of Education. So we all believe in education as an inspiring, awakening, and empowering tool. And when you talked about the human revolution, it reminded me of, well, when I started my last degree it's the specialization in PE, like physical education, I felt empowered, and I kind of free myself from my unhelpedness because of some spaces that Berta and Silvia were creating in the university. And that's why I started working with them, because I could feel that spaces were really like empowering. And today I noted some things we are doing in the university to build that kind of spaces from we call it like the hacker ethic, because we started researching in the hacker ethic, and it's about passion, sense of community, social impact, accessibility, creativity, curiosity, and inclusive networks. And through our area, which is physical education, we also work a lot with the visual and with the dancing, and we try to show with our bodies the need of change. And we came today also to find some valuable networks with other people that are interested in sustainability, because we're trying to change the teaching methods and also to make future physical education teachers, to make them not capable, because they are, but they need to be aware of the capacity to educate in sustainability, and that's where.
Just to confirm some of the questions that Carlos had been saying before about how to inspire to the people. My experience as a father of two teenagers, I can confirm that everything I try they done is impossible. It's exactly the opposite. Even there are things that they say, why we don't go to this place or to this discussion? They say no. And 1 week later, they say, I'm going to go exactly where I told her. And I say, why? Last week you didn't want to go. I say, yes, but you offered me and you are my parent and I'm going to go with my friends. So my recommendation is don't say to anybody what they have to do. Try to work, try to do, and left some space. Open the mind, and that's all.
When I entered the university in '68.
Oh, also 68.
We are from the same age. We had a problem, important problem, and this problem was Franco. And the idea was that we were young, and we said, we cannot live without freedom. We cannot live without connection with Europe. We cannot live with fear. And most of the students made the revolution against the regime. And if after the years we finish, and I had very simply a job. I have possibilities of developing myself. I got married, and my life has been more or less very easy. But what about you? If you compare my situation with your situation, you had very, very bad expectations. Probably in your life, you are going to be a lot of collapses. 3 months ago, let us say between 3 and 6 months, we started to be happy because the COVID is going to finish. So we are going to be happy, and so on and so forth. And the price of raw materials is increasing rapidly. The new life after COVID is going to be hard life. Hard life. And you are doing nothing. You are sleeping. And if we compare the situation with Franco with your situation, I cannot understand what is happening with your generation. Because you see the university, all the university people here, you see the university, and the knowledge is totally fragmented. Nobody connects one topic with another. Nobody teach what is going to be in the future. Nobody talks about how to connect what you are teaching me with other teachings. And did you have a topic about ethics, a topic about sustainability, a topic about inequality. And these are the real problems you are going to have. And nobody is telling, hey, you should change. And you should take the professors, the rector, the governors, and say, stop this situation. And take the lead. Take the lead, because this is a fraud. And in my view, it is necessary for you to take the lead, because it's your life. In my rest of the life, I will be retired with the money you are collecting to pay me. And this is the life, and this is the real life. So I cannot understand why, when you talk with your colleagues or with your friends and say, bah, we are happy, you have, these are very stupid discussions about climate change, the future, and things like that. And I'm very afraid that in the university we are producing mercenaries, in which you have you or every other, you have no, let us say, structured your head in ethics, in future, in problems. So you are young people to become receptors, to become persons that easily adopt the ideas of the people who contract you. In the idea of, if I go to a company and say, we are the sustainable company, and you believe that because they pay, so if I don't say that my company is sustainable, even I don't believe it, but for sure I need to defend that, because I'm going to lose my job. And then we are mercenaries. We want to work very well from the technology point of view, and we have no structured mind about what is going to happen in the future. And the others put the ideas, they are interests in your mind. So, make the revolution.
Please, make the revolution, right?
Is there any further conversation that you want to have? But I think the point that Antonio is making is change is not going to happen unless each one of us stands up to make it happen. Sorry? Yep. Change is not going to happen unless each one of us stands up to make it happen. And it starts with you, it starts today. And it's not about telling other people what to do, but I really believe that what Antonio is asking you to do is not too hard if you organize using even the technology that we have available. I'm a co-founder of another entity in South Africa to do exactly what Antonio is talking about. Because young people come to me and say, well, you guys used to be so good at strong activities. What do we do now? I said, we didn't have the tools that you have. But what Antonio is saying to you is you must first reimagine the future you want to see, so that becomes your inspiration. And then turn inside and see, am I ready in terms of my own understanding of myself, my strengths, my weaknesses, my opportunities, to be able to start working towards that? Who else can be with me on this journey? And then you just need a small note. 15 young, great unwashed young people in South Africa in 1968 led to the end of apartheid in 1994. Not the ANC with its guns blazing. And the mess we have now is exactly because they just simply jumped into the shoes of the apartheid regime. They didn't do the human revolution stuff. And so it's like having a government in Spain replicating Franco's regime. It's very easy. But to have a new ecologically sound well-being for all promoting governance system, way of life, learning and working together is got to be governed by values that make you go to bed very perfectly happy. Because the mental illnesses, the schizophrenias that we see is because people are trying to be one thing in one space in another. And so I really want to agree with Antonio and encourage you, because I know, I've seen it. Young people are the only people who can change the world. I haven't heard 70-year-olds changing the world. Young people.
Well, I agree totally with you. And I want to tell you one example of today. Today, the mayor of Zaragoza has been presenting the project, one of my projects, the Bosque of the Zaragozanos, the forest of the people from Zaragoza. And this is a type of project that you can today plant a seed or a small tree, and you could not see the forest until 20, 30 years were passed. So this is the project must be initiated today if we want to give a legacy to the next generations. So if this is something to be done not for the next election, but for the next generation. And this is one example of how we can start moving things starting from a single point. I invite you to collaborate with this initiative by entering into the web of the Bosque de los Zaragozanos, in which you could collaborate or financially, individually, or planting your own tree with your hands. So a small step, as Armstrong said on the moon, is a small step, but a big step for the mankind. So something that you cannot enjoy today, but your children will enjoy it.
Thank you. It's really been fantastic, and I know you're going to reconnect either virtually or physically at some stage. But please connect with this global engagement. Please connect with the Global Youth Engagement Platform, and these ideas you can bring to that platform. Imagine if the whole world, every one of you, plants a tree. And each time I mean, it's a practice in some African countries. Each time you have a baby, you plant a tree. And each time you want to commemorate your parents, you plant a tree. Every tree in the end becomes part of a forest, and that's how we rebuild. So thank you, and I know you are going to be great leaders.